All right, I'm going to do a breakdown here for the Josh Taylor Teofimo Lopez fight coming up this weekend. Should be a good fight. Really has me going back and forth on what could happen. And I'm going to give my breakdown on who I think is going to win here. So let's start off with Josh Taylor, right? So I've been a fan of Josh Taylor for a while, really since about the O'Hara Davies fight. Going back, I think that was in 2017, 2018. And, I thought Josh was a super talented fighter, great body puncher, very skilled, just a good fighter all around, really a fan. And coming into this fight, for all intents and purposes, he should be the favorite. He should win the fight, but there's a few red flags I feel like going on with him right now that I want to discuss. So, look, even though he won the Regis Prograis fight, the Ramirez fight, the Davies fight, some other tough fights that he's had, like it's always a tough fight, like for a guy with only 19 fights, I feel like his prime might have been a couple years ago. And I guess to go further into that, the Prograis fight. Did he win? Well, it was super close. I did think he won. He edged it. But man, he took a lot of punches in that fight. Same with the Ramirez fight. For knocking Ramirez down in the sixth and seventh round, he only won the fight 114, 112 on all the cards. He lost a lot of rounds in that fight, took a lot of punches in that fight, and not everybody ages the same way in boxing. I think Manny and Floyd, who were able to go on and be elite into their late 30s, and with Manny even into his, 40s almost. Count the Thurman fight, I think he was past 40, but I just feel like Josh Taylor, for only being 32, he's an old 32 right now. And I think it showed in the Catterall fight. I think it showed by him getting injured so many times for the rematch of the Catterall fight. And I just wonder really how many good elite fights Josh has left. You know, I feel like for only, like I said, for only being 19-0, I feel like he's probably not even going to get to 25 fights in his career. I'd be shocked if he did, especially at the elite level. I mean, really, realistically, I only expect Josh to probably have 3 or 4 fights left in his career, and I could be way wrong on that, but that's just the way I feel right now, at least at this level. So, let's talk a little bit about Teofimo Lopez. So, obviously, riding high after the Lomachenko fight, loses to Cambosos, essentially loses to Sandor Martin. I mean, let's be honest, both of these guys are basically coming off losses in their last fight. I think that's why there's really not that much excitement and anticipation for this fight. If this fight would have happened after, Lopez beat Lomachenko and then moved up to 140, this would be a huge fight. Now they're struggling to sell out 5,500 seats at Madison Square Garden. They're not even in the main building, they're in the theater. For a fight of this magnitude, it just seems to me like nobody's really talking about this fight. I mean, unless you're a hardcore boxing fan. So, but let's go deeper into Lopez's fight. So you got the Lomachenko fight, and you got to give him credit for winning that fight. He came out. Lomachenko clearly worried about his power, kind of bullied Lomachenko a little bit early. Did show a little bit of boxing skills, but really Lomachenko just kind of laid back. You could tell he was worried about getting hit, and Teo built up a lead. The second half of that fight, though, Lomachenko did kind of start figuring him out and was definitely winning rounds. I believe I had the fight 115 to 113 for Lopez. But if you go back and watch that fight, it was very close. I could easily see a draw for Lomachenko. And, into the Cambosos fight, when it first happened, nobody expected him to lose to Cambosos. I mean, Cambosos was just some nobody mandatory from Australia, talked a lot of smack, really got in Teofimo's head. And then come fight time, you know, Teofimo, told everybody like, oh, I promised my fans I'm going to come out, bet on the first round knockout. And he came out looking for that first round knockout, got caught. It changed the entire complex of the fight. And I thought Cambosos did beat him. But beyond the knockdown, Cambosos was exploiting a lot of things in Lopez's game in that fight. I mean, he didn't just knock him down in the first round. He also won the majority of the rounds, too, on top of that. Then you look at the Sandor Martin fight in his last fight again. Martin, not a puncher. That's the reason why they even fought Sandor Martin, is because they're like, okay, this guy's a decent fighter. He's coming off a good upset win, but he can't punch. We're going to go out there. We're just going to bum rush him. And no, he got exposed again because Teofimo Lopez, for all of his excitement that he brings and the power that he at least had at one time at 135, there's just technical flaws all over. He really don't have a solid boxing foundation. I mean, he don't really have a great jab. He's quick and he has a good right hand and he likes to lunge a lot and kind of flail it wildly, but he really don't have any foundational boxing skills. He doesn't really have great movement, footwork, anything else. It's basically just he's a quick fighter with a big right hand, and that'll get you a long way in boxing sometimes. But at this elite level, and even sometimes below that elite level, with guys like Cambosos and Sandor Martin, if you only got one move, if you're a one trick pony, they can exploit that and expose that a little bit. So all right, let's get into kind of what I think is going to happen in this fight. Josh should win. Josh is the bigger fighter. He's the more skillful fighter. All things considered, I still would probably give Lopez the power advantage in this fight, but I think Josh Taylor's a way better body puncher. And mentally in this fight, and that's really where I think this fight's going to be won. Mentally, I feel like Josh Taylor's, even though I think he might be a little, he might have lost a step from a couple years ago. I think mentally he should be able to rise above Teofimo Lopez in this fight. The Cambosos loss for Teo was huge. It just crushed his confidence. And that's really what he had going for him in his career. He was never really the most skillful and he did have the power, but he just had that confidence that he would just go out there and beat anybody. And Cambosos took that from him. And I don't think he's going to be able to get it back. I mean, you see the stuff coming out of his mouth. The other day he was saying he was the greatest, like him and Ali. It was just, he don't even believe what's coming out of his mouth. He has a bunch of yes men around him that tell him a bunch of nonsense. Even after the last fight with Martin, the camera caught him saying like, man, I don't think I have it out there no more. And, maybe I lost it or something to that effect. And then he tried to play it off and say, oh, I knew the cameras were on me. I was just saying that to try to create headlines or whatever. And then you got him, going at the ESPN announcer saying that this is his last fight on ESPN, that they favor black fighters, and just nonsense. Like he's just delusional about the loss to Cambosos. He's delusional really about the Sandor Martin fight still because he lost that fight. I mean, he got knocked down by a guy that can't punch. He got knocked down by Cambosos, who also can't punch. So I don't necessarily think his chin is bad, but when your technique is that bad and you just flail in wildly and leave yourself open and you get caught, hey, you can get dropped. I mean, when you're rushing in with your chin exposed and you get hit, there's a chance that you could get dropped. I mean, so I don't necessarily think Teofimo Lopez has a bad chin, but I think his technique is, again, just so flawed that he can be hit and hurt. And so what I think is going to happen in this fight, I think Teofimo Lopez's best chance is to come out and start fast. And I think he will. I think he'll try to come out, start fast. First 1 to 3 to 4 rounds, I think Josh needs to be careful, stay away, try not to get engaged into a war, which is going to be tough for Josh because Josh could have won a lot of fights in his career easier by just boxing, but he's a warrior. You hit him, he wants to hit you back. The Davies fight, the Prograis fight, the Ramirez fight, a couple other fights in there. He could have won those fights just with his boxing skills, just using even really the Catterall fight too, which Josh probably, I don't know if he lost it or not. He got knocked down, he got hurt. It was a close fight. I didn't actually score that fight. You kind of got the impression afterwards that Catterall might have won, but it was a close fight, and sometimes that just happens in boxing. But he always wants to fight back when he gets hit, and I don't think early in this fight is the time to do that. I think if Josh can make it through the first 3-4 rounds, which I do believe he will, I think at that point Teofimo Lopez will start to break down. I think mentally he'll start to break down because Josh is a great body puncher, probably the most underrated body puncher in the sport. That's going to take a toll on Teofimo Lopez. Nobody's ever win at his body the way that Josh Taylor is going to go at his body in this fight. So after, at first 3-4 rounds, I expect it to be pretty even, maybe a slight edge to Lopez. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh got caught with a few big punches, maybe stunned, maybe hurt, maybe even dropped in the fight. But I think he'll find a way to make it through the early onslaught from Teofimo Lopez. And after that, I think the skills of Josh will just come on. He'll be hitting him to the body. He'll be using his length. He'll be touching him up. Lopez will start to tire a little bit. And as he gets tired, the sloppier he gets in his fights. I mean, you look at it, he faded in the Lomachenko fight late. He did knock Kambosos down in the 10th round in that fight, but he still didn't really look fresh in that fight. Maybe his training was off, whatever. I do expect him to be in great shape in this fight, but I just think with the body attack that Josh will put on him, Teofimo Lopez, with every round that goes on, will be fading and fading and fading. And and I also wonder, is the power of Teofimo Lopez a little bit overrated? Look, the Mason Menard knockout early in his career, great knockout. Menard's not that good of a fighter, so it was a great knockout, but whatever. The Comey knockout, again, great knockout. Just landed a perfect shot on Comey, perfect right hand, and you got to give him credit for that. But you look at the Nakatani fight; he hit Nakatani with everything in the kitchen sink. Never got Nakatani out of there. Lomachenko, he beat Lomachenko in my mind in a very close fight, but he never hurt Lomachenko, never wobbled Lomachenko. The Martin fight, never really had Martin hurt in that fight. The Kambosos fight, he did hurt Kambosos, I believe it was the 10th round, and dropped him, but really he landed a ton of hard, clean punches in that fight and never knocked him out. So even though I think he can hurt Josh and will have his moments and probably will hurt Josh at some point in this fight, I don't think at 140 he's going to have that one hitter quitter that he had early in his career at 135 versus lower tier opposition. So yeah, I expect Josh to come on. I expect Josh to be putting it on him. And Teofimo Lopez is very fragile mentally right now. So after the first few rounds, when he starts to tire and Josh starts to come on and dominate, I expect Lopez to really start to come apart mentally. And honestly, I think that Josh can probably stop him in this fight. I do. I think the body attack combined with the fact that Lopez is just, I don't think he's all there in the head right now. As a fighter, as a man, the stuff that comes out of his mouth, I think once he's getting dominated, he's just going to start placating to the crowd. He'll start smiling. He'll start trying to pretend like, he's fine or whatever. Like he'll just start acting a clown basically. And I expect Josh to slowly, after about 3-4 rounds, wear him down. And I'm going to go with Josh Taylor, either KO or TKO in about 9 to 11 rounds. I think that should be it. And if it does go 12, I would expect Josh to carry the fight from the mid rounds and the late rounds to win the decision. If it did go 12, I'd expect the scorecards to be something like 116, 112, 117, 111. But even though I'm picking Josh in this fight by a knockout late, I do think Teofimo Lopez is very dangerous early because, look, if he comes out early, he's going to be dangerous. If he hurts Josh and Josh tries to, just, okay, let's go to war, and he could potentially, there's a way in my mind where Teofimo Lopez could get an early knockout here, but I think Josh will be prepared for that. I think he's too good of a fighter. And even if he did lose a step or two, I think he'll be fine here because Lopez just is damaged goods right now, I believe. And so Josh Taylor, TKO, 9 to 11 rounds, maybe even on a body shot. We will see. But that is my breakdown for this fight. Thanks for watching.